Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something really cool. We are going to treat business strategy just like an architectural blueprint. We're going to look closely at the underlying structures to understand exactly how companies operate, how they survive, and ultimately how they make money. I mean, whether you're looking at your favorite local coffee shop or a massive multinational tech giant, they absolutely all share a fundamental architecture. So let's decode it. Okay, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to start by defining the business model. Then we'll break down the 9 building blocks, see the canvas in action, and finally look at the macro types of business models. Let's jump right in. Section 1, defining the business model. Before we get to the canvas itself, we really need to strip away all those industry buzzwords and just lay a solid foundation. At its absolute simplest, a business model is literally just the way that a company sells products to its customers. It describes the exact mechanism, the method, a business relies on to get an offering out of their hands and into the hands of the end users. But as you probably know, in practice, it's rarely just a simple handoff. Right? A true business model goes much deeper than that. As this quote captures, it's the rationale of how an organization creates, delivers, and captures value. Value is the absolute keyword here. You have to create something people actually want, figure out how to deliver it to them efficiently, and crucially, you've got to ensure you're capturing enough of that value back in revenue to keep the lights on. Moving on to Section 2, the 9 building blocks. Let's see exactly how this value is constructed step by step. Enter the ultimate blueprint, the business model canvas, designed by Alexander Osterwalder. It maps out every functional room required to build a successful business house, giving us a visual, single-page of framework to organize all that complex reality into 9 distinct manageable blocks. It's an incredibly powerful tool because, well, it forces you to see exactly how everything connects. We can group these blocks together logically. Let's start with the front stage interface by asking, for whom are we creating value? First, you have customer segments. Are we targeting a broad mass market, a hyper-specific niche, or maybe a multi-sided platform connecting buyers and sellers? Next, we determine customer relationships. What kind of dynamic do these segments expect from us? And finally, channels. These are the exact pathways we use to reach those customers and integrate our product into their daily routines. Okay, so once we know who we're serving, we move to the backstage operational factors. Right at the center is your value proposition. This is the exact bundle of products or services that solves your customer's specific problems. To deliver that, you need key activities, like manufacturing or running a platform. You're also going to need key resources. This spans physical spaces, human capital, financial backing, or even intellectual property, like patents. And because literally no business operates in a vacuum, you absolutely rely on key partners to optimize operations, reduce risk, or get resources you just can't build yourself. The crucial final step in wrapping up these 9 blocks is the financial foundation. You have to weigh your revenue streams against your cost structure. It comes down to determining what your customers are truly willing to pay for and whether your operations are cost-driven or value-driven. If you're cost-driven, your structure is incredibly lean, heavily automated, and probably relies on outsourcing to offer the lowest possible price. A value-driven structure, though, is the exact opposite. It's focused entirely on premium value creation, where customers are more than happy to pay top dollar for high performance, deep customization, or exclusive brand status. All right, Section 3. The canvas in action. Now, what's really interesting here is actually seeing a fully constructed house. Let's bring this theory into reality. Consider a startup like Green Tech Solutions. They're targeting environmental concerns by offering sustainable alternatives for personal care and household essentials. Their clear value proposition, minimizing the consumer's carbon footprint. Their key activities revolve heavily around researching and developing eco-friendly materials, while their specific customer segment is, naturally, individuals who are deeply invested in green lifestyles. But let's look at a much more complex map. Take the Montreux Jazz Festival. This bird's-eye view shows just how intricate a large-scale events business model can actually be. Their value proposition isn't just selling music, right? It's curating a totally unique, immersive atmosphere and experience. To pull this off, key partnerships are absolutely vital. I mean, they have to collaborate with corporate sponsors, artists, local municipalities, and literally armies of volunteers. And their channels? They span everywhere from digital ticketing platforms all the way down to physical tourism boards. Let's break down the math on their revenue streams because it's actually super fascinating. You'd probably assume a music festival survives entirely on selling tickets. No way. Ticket sales only account for 41% of their revenue model. The festival is heavily subsidized by food and beverage sales, which make up a massive 28%, and corporate sponsorships bringing in another solid 20%. The rest is just padded out by merchandising and recordings. Literally, without those burgers, beers, and sponsors, the whole business model would completely collapse. On the flip side, their cost structure reveals exactly where all that money goes. Paying the famous artist consumes 29% of the budget. But surprisingly, that's actually eclipsed by a massive 36% required for heavy infrastructure and production demands. We're talking physical stages, lighting, massive sound systems. The remaining 35% goes to fixed costs, marketing, and baseline expenses. So you can clearly see how their key resources, those huge stages, and their key activities, running a massive live show, directly force this really heavy cost structure. Moving into our final section, types of business models. Now that we understand the internal mechanics, let's zoom back out to the macro level and examine the wider neighborhood. The first major interaction type is business to business, or B2B. This involves commercial activities strictly among two or more companies, usually facilitated through the internet nowadays. The end consumer isn't involved in this step at all. B2B transactions generally fall into three distinct buckets. First, supplier-oriented, which is a marketplace where tons of buyers purchase from just a few dominant suppliers. Then you have buyer-oriented, which is the total reverse, a few powerful buyers sourcing from a sea of competing suppliers. And finally, intermediate-oriented, where a third-party platform actively matches buyers and sellers. To put that in perspective, before an auto manufacturer ever sells a car, they operate as a massive buyer, sourcing tires from rubber suppliers and windscreens from glass manufacturers in these huge, complex B2B transactions. Following that exact supply chain, the moment that final finished vehicle is sold by the dealership to the everyday driver, we enter a business-to-consumer or B2C transaction. This is for sure the model we're almost familiar with. It's just businesses selling directly to end users. Especially with modern e-commerce, this model lets us easily browse a huge variety of merchandise online and score better pricing by just skipping the middlemen entirely. Now, let's see what happens when the businesses step back completely. We get consumer-to-consumer, or C2C interactions. This is where the landscape gets highly decentralized. In C2C models, third parties electronically facilitate exchanges directly between everyday individuals. The classic example here is an online auction or a digital marketplace. One consumer posts an item they just don't need anymore, and other consumers actively bid to purchase it. The tech platform is just acting as a digital middleman, usually skimming a small fee or percentage off the final sale, while the actual transaction of goods happens strictly peer-to-peer. Next up, we have B to G, or business to government. In this scenario, the primary client isn't a shopper at a mall or another corporation. It's a local, state, or federal government agency. As we know, governments operate on incredibly strict, taxpayer-funded budgets, so they're constantly looking for creative ways to limit their internal overhead. A great example of this arrangement is a private firm offering specialized IT consulting services to a government agency. The government relies on this B2G setup to keep their essential public-facing tech updated and secure. Crucially, they get to do this while limiting massive expenses. They acquire the temporary expertise they need right now without taking on the long-term pension and salary burdens of hiring full-time, highly specialized staff. Finally, we have C2B, or consumer to business. This one is a fascinating reversal of the traditional flow of commerce. In a C2B model, individuals are the ones creating value and businesses are consuming it. Think about a consumer writing a highly detailed online review, or maybe participating in a focus group that yields a brilliant new product idea. In these instances, the individual is generating actionable value for the business, especially if the company takes that input and immediately uses it to upgrade its own value proposition. Well, we have covered a ton of ground today in this explainer, from Osterwalder's 9 building blocks to the surprising math of a jazz festival and the shifting dynamics of B2B, B2C, and beyond. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a quick challenge to test your own understanding of the business blueprint. If you were to map your absolute favorite brand on the canvas right now, what is their ultimate value proposition, and which key partners make it a reality? Think about it. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep analyzing the structures all around you.